Baruch atah Asherah anat malcha ha'olam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hitatif l'tzitzit. Wow! What's wow? Good morning, Batya. Let's go a little higher. Good evening, Kabi Havana. You're in Australia? New Zealand? Israel? Hong Kong? Yes, you caught me at the very beginning, Batya. How are you doing today? How are your kids doing? Did you have a good dinner? It's not quite dinner time, is it? In Israel? So today, you're in the UAE. Wow. Were you born there or did you move there after? I know there's a fairly large international population in the United Arab Emirates. You in Abu Dhabi? Somewhere else? Welcome. So today we are going to say the Shema, Vahafta. You were born in Brazil. Why did you move to UAE? I bet you have a very interesting job that I would not like to have. Thanks, King Elvanessus. Good morning, Buttflaky. What else should I call you? Rear end parts? No, rear end bits? I came up with a bunch of witty ones and then I forgot them all. Fud Blakes. That's rude. That's even ruder. One of your sons from Maryland came yesterday, and your son from Seattle is coming on Sunday. That's great. I'm glad that you're in such close contact with your friends. With your family. You're amazing. Have a good day to you too, Angel Boy. Angel Boy love. You haven't had all of them together in 5 years. How many kids do you have? Yeah, so we're going to say Shema and Vahafta, and then we're going to read more from the tale of Era and Isham, and maybe we'll understand what it's about. Like, it's about the apocalypse. Like, that's basically what I can tell, but it's hard to tell who's causing the apocalypse, whether it's Marduk or Era, and what Isham's role in it. Like, is he waging war? Is he trying to prevent the war? It's all very confusing. But we'll read some of the old texts. 3 live in Israel, and 1 lives in Seattle, and 1 lives in Maryland. Interesting. That's a lot of babies to hold in your body. Quite an experience. An apocalypse of like an eschaton? Well, the word eschaton is Greek, and these were written like easily 1,000 years before there was any like Greek influence in the ancient world. But sure, yes. Stories that preceded or presaged the apocalyptic literature of the Greek and Roman period. Absolutely. Abby, I'm definitely not wearing all pink. I have some pink eyeshadow on that's like a little messy. I can never do under eye stuff. Like, it always makes me look like a raccoon. And I keep trying, and whenever I do it, I'm always upset with it. Like, maybe I'll figure it out once my face changes. But right now, like, I just can't put eye makeup on my lower lid. It just doesn't look good. Yes, but you know what I mean by eschaton. Yes. Not literally Greek. What is the etymology of eschaton? I was confident it was Greek. Is it Latin? What does my tattoo mean? So my tattoo is the chrysopoe of Cleopatra. Cleopatra was a maybe Jewish alchemist. It's not clear. She was an Alexandrian alchemist, and much alchemy in Alexandria was Jewish, but Cleopatra was probably Egyptian of some flavor, maybe Greek Egyptian. In any case, she was an alchemist. She wrote some enigmatic texts about gold making and transformation and monotheism. But the symbol is much older. The symbol goes all the way back to the before the old kingdom of ancient Egypt, before there was a unified kingdom. And it's about death and rebirth and transformation, and how the outside and inside is the same. It's a metaphor for consciousness, the way that you contain yourself. Like, your entire self is actually just a part of yourself. Your experience of your selfhood is housed in your nervous system, which is only part of your body. So the whole is the part, and the part is the whole, and the part represents the whole, even though it's not the whole. And we get very confused Ouroboros loopings. Means a lot of different things. I got this shortly after I started feminizing hormones, so it's like it's a transition metaphor for me. I had some very dysphoric dreams, like sexy Ouroboros dreams, so I put it on my hand. Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much is going on. Yeah, basically every society has apocalyptic literature. I think because every society has experienced war. You meant eschaton, all stories of the end, which predates Greek. Yes. The word is Greek, the concept isn't. Yes, I agree with you. You are correct. Abby, you have no idea what I'm saying? Neither do I. Don't worry about it. You're all getting inked together next Friday. You need to figure out what you want. That's really sweet. All your children will be marked in the same way. That's really cool. Yes. Well, not that, like, strictly speaking, the end of the world requires war, but I think that the development of apocalyptic literature in human cultures, particularly in ancient Near Eastern cultures, is a direct response to a series of conquests and genocides and regime changes that occurred over several thousand years. I think that it prompted a certain idea of what the end of the world looks like, which is explicitly a political end, because those are the ends that we've actually seen. We've seen many political ends of the world. We haven't actually seen, like, mass dying of, you know, on a mythological apocalyptic scale. Oh, that's all you wanted? You just wanted the name of the symbol, and here I'm talking to you about sexy, dysphoric dreams that I once had? I'm sorry. I apologize. I should be simpler. It's a metaphor for infinity or recycling. Yes, sacred and profane, all in one. Except the religious one? Right, your religious son is not going to get a tattoo because Yahweh doesn't like it. Apocalypse by Revealed Vision Stories. Recycling yourself, eating the rich. Yes, if you eat the rich, you become them. That's what Zeus did. Zeus ate all of the entire world and then vomited it back up, and that's how he became the God King. Did you know that story? Sarah, thank you for translating me. I appreciate it. You will not eat the rich? Yeah, they would give you indigestion. That's what happened to Zeus. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we should begin the prayers rather than me flirting with you all. with nonsense words that not even I understand. Like, I am speaking gibberish. Like, I'm speaking coded language, which may or may not make sense. Like, it's not supposed to be the most coherent, Abby. I'm practicing my religious nonsense. I think it's important to be good at that. Well, mission accomplished then. All right, so rather than gibberish, why don't I sing to you in Hebrew? So this prayer is called Shema, and it means listen. Good morning, Shannon. How are you? Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Vahafta et anat Elohecha ובכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך וחיו הדברים האלה אשר נחיה מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך ובדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לעוד על ידיך וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך וחיה כי ויחי יהוה אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר נשבע לבתיך לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר למילאת וברות הצווים אשר לא עשת כערים וזיתים אשר לא נתת והלכת ושבת הישמר לך פן תשכח את יורשת אישך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Good morning, Kimmy. Good morning, Courtney. So many friends here this morning. Hi, good morning, hello. Welcome. I'm happy. Y'all make me so happy. It's absurd. Like, what is this? I just get to hang out with you every day because we like each other? Like, what? What does it mean to be a human? I am Jewish. Genetically, right? There were some genocides in my epigenome and they caused me to be some of the ways that I am. So I can't help but being Jewish, even if sometimes I wish I wasn't. But, I am. Yay, let's all hang out and say some old words. Yeah, I say these words because my mother said them, and my grandmother said them, and my grandmother's mother said them all the way back. Probably 3,000 years, right? Like, certainly there's a mimetic history that like may or may not track with the genetic one, but the mimetic one is more important, and I've been ingrained with the traumas and with the particular flavor of God that is unique to Judaism, and I try to share it with you in the ways that I know how. Speaking to our friends through the TV or our little Palm Pilot, yes, with our killer calendar app. You're 25% Ashkenazi, meaning you have an Ashkenazi grandparent. That's cool. I wonder when they came to the United States. So, let's continue reading from this ancient Mesopotamian story that I wish I could parse for you. Like, normally when I start reading these, or like when I start reciting the story, I'm like, okay, here's what happened in the story. But I can't tell you. Like, Marduk said he was going to destroy the world, and then Aaron was like, no, you shouldn't. Or maybe he was like, yeah, you totally should. Or maybe he was like, I want to destroy the world. And there's a lot of like apocalyptic visioning, right? And we were talking about what it is to be an eschaton. Does this count as an eschaton, even though it's pre-Greek influence? Yes, I think the conclusion was yes. If you're going to define eschaton broadly enough, then we can say yes. And Will says that this is eschatological literature, and I will agree. This story is crazy, yes. So we're going to start at tablet 3, and maybe the plot will become clear exactly who is doing the genociding. Lots of long-winded descriptions of the shit people intend to do. Except they're not people, they're gods. And the real issue is that I'm having trouble keeping track of who is speaking. And part of that is, like, I feel a mandate to, like, give some gendered voices, but, like, I don't have that many different voices in my body. Like, I'm not actually a trained voice actor. I just know how to sound like a boy when I want to. But, like, so Marduk and Era and Isham and Inanna was there for a little bit, very briefly. She was like, no, don't do it. But they didn't listen to her because she's a woman. Anyway, tablet 3 starts like this. Staying within his dwelling, he refused to pay heed to anyone. And, and so one other thing to say is that this is also a story about idolatry. Right? It's a story about, like, why we have idols. Like, Marduk was, like, too brilliant and shiny for people to see him, so when he, like, came down to the temple, the Isagila temple in Babylon, he was, like, so shiny and bright that he killed everyone. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that again. You should make a statue of me and dress the statue in my clothing. And then they can look at the statue and they can feel sacred. But they won't die because they won't be blinded by the brilliance of my god's sunlight. So I believe we're talking about Marduk now. But we also could be talking about Era because I'm not a very diligent reader. Anyhow. Staying within his dwelling, he refused to pay heed to anyone, and all of their persuasive attempts with him were ignored. Lions would be alike to quails compared to the wrath of Era. So, okay, we're talking about Era, the war god. And as his will became more firm, so too did his anger grow, as he felt compelled to perform the acts which were required. I will make them endure hardship and reduce their lifespans. I will strike down the righteous man in the prime of his life. I will set the unrighteous upon the throne, the Terminator. I will confuse the people's minds so the father forgets his son, and the daughter will tell her mother she ought to go away. I will make them speak in villainy, make them blasphemers, forsaking their God, openly declaring their goddess a whore. That did happen. So that happens in the Old Testament. Yahweh's like, I don't want these goddesses anymore. I'm just going to call them all whores. It is, like, actually, like, really horrific and dreadful. But, you know, sometimes sacred whores are exactly what you need. I will cause the brigand to arise to make the roads impassable. Even in the center square, each will ransack the other's things. Both the wolf and the lion will bring down the cattle of Shakan. I will unleash the Pashitu demon to cut short children's lives. I will bereft the nurse of the bawling infant and tot's chatter, and I will cause Alala to forsake the grazing pasture lands. Both the shepherd and the herder will abandon their sheltering. I will cause the clothes of the man to be shorn from his body, and I will make the youth walk naked in the central square. I will have the youth enter the underworld without a shroud. His stocks of sacrificial sheep will die, thus imperiling his life. As for the royal, his flocks of lambs will no longer be sufficient, and they will be unable to gain the prophecies of Shamhash. The ailing man will accept nothing but savory meat to eat. He will not accept anything else offered. Rather, he will leave. During the war campaign, I will bring royal horses to a halt. The lifespan of his entire army of soldiers I will cut short, and the axles of his chariots I will cause to remain stuck fast. This is like the fourth person in the story who has done this. Yes, they're all just like telling about the apocalypse. Yes, but Yahweh was right because we shouldn't worship idols. Remember monotheism? I am an unabashed idol worshiper. She's right here. I think she's great, and she reminds me of the sacred feminine every day. Or this one, right? This one is 25,000 years old. I worship old things because I think when people a long time ago had an idea, the idea was probably worth remembering. Polytheist, I mean, and well, like, strictly speaking, if you actually interrogate my theology, you would call me an atheist, in that I don't believe in supernatural forces in the world. I'm a naturalist, right? All of the things in the world can be explained by material reality, physical reality. You don't need to posit two realms, like a sacred one and an unsacred one that exists simultaneously. It's just one realm, right? That's my most intense monotheism. There is no distinction between the spiritual world and the physical world, right? But in that physical world, are there like things that we could call divinities? Several of them? Sure. Why not? So I don't know. Am I a polytheist? I'm an atheist? Both? Statues are art and art is sacred. Exactly, Sarah. Precisely. Kong Buddha idolizes all day. Excellent. Which old ideas? I mean, particularly this one. This is a representation of one of the oldest ideas that I keep around me, right? Venus of Willendorf is easily 25,000 years old, right? So, like, I don't know. I have no idea what this represented to the person who made it, right? Like, was she a goddess? Was she his mom? Was the artist male? Was the artist female? Like, I don't know. But I can hold this in my hand, and I can look at its form, and, like, clearly it's a human form, and I think it's, like, astonishingly beautiful. So, like, I don't know what it meant, but I can have the same experience that they did, like the same superficial aesthetic experience, and that connects me with my ancient ancestors, and makes me feel like my life has purpose, right? Like, I am here to continue a pattern that they continued. Right? So that's why I made this. Right? This is a replica of a Judean pillar figurine, right? So 3,000 years ago, people were worshipping Ashra, and maybe this is a representation of her, maybe it isn't. We don't know. We don't know what they were experiencing or what they were thinking about the figures that they were making, but we know that they felt like this in our hands. So I made one so that I could feel what they felt. Yeah, it connects me. Right? And, like, I mean, if that's blasphemous idolatry, if Yahweh wants to punish me for thinking about other ways of representing the divine than the word, like, okay, so be it. Very Nietzschean view of the divine. I mean, I did read a lot of Nietzsche when I was younger. Art is the closest thing to godhood we have. Art is Yahweh. Very interesting, Sarah. I like that take a lot. The gods are creators, and the creators are definition of artists and engineers. Yeah, you can tag yourself. It can't be blasphemy if I aren't a believer. Interesting. I mean, I could be rejected by people who I respect, right? Whose respect I want, whose acceptance I want, and that can be hurtful. Like a mezuzah, it's all about connection to your higher source. Exactly, right? The mezuzah says, copy this meme, so I copy the meme. I say that prayer every day. You heard me say it. Art failed to replace religion. The Wagner gamble failed. Interesting. I mean, I don't know that much about, like, what Wagner or Nietzsche were trying to do. Like, were they asserting that art was going to replace religion? I mean, certainly, like, in the West, there are a lot of movements that motivate people with what we could call religious fervor, even though they're not theistic. Like, I don't think art replaced religion everywhere. Atheistic art replaced religion everywhere, but very much in European cultures, and in European colonial places. Like, we worship memes more than we worship new memes that are not necessarily supernatural, don't assert supernatural existence, than we do the old ones. I don't know if Wagner's gamble failed. I think it was just that, like, the German fascist experiment failed, right? But that's not necessarily that all of it failed. Nietzsche believed that the polytheists were closer to atheists than monotheists. Yeah, absolutely. Because the polytheistic gods were equally at the whims of the universe as us. Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. Right, like, if I'm monotheistic in this, like, very broad sense that, like, I think that everything can be summarized with a single word. Right, like, that if we want to symbolize everything, that it must include both the natural and the supernatural, and we assert that they're the same, right? And that, like, so there's a Gnostic word, seeing that you're agnostic, Sarah. There's a Gnostic word called pleroma, like a Greek Gnostic word that I really appreciate. And the pleroma is, like, the unification of all opposites, right? So the pleroma is hot, but it's also cold, and it's big, and it's also small, and it's divine, and it's also diabolic. And it's human, and it's also animal, and it's sacred, and it's profane, and, like, anything you could say about the pleroma, you could also say that it is not that. And that is what the universe is, right? It's the totality of all things, all opposites combined together into some kind of existing, non-existing concept that cannot be thought. Like, if we're getting very theological, that is That's the best way for me to describe what my view of God is. But then there are all these like subsets of the pleroma, right? Like Yahweh is like has features. Yahweh's jealous and masculine and xenophobic. And Yahweh is part of the pleroma, just as not Yahweh is part of the pleroma. Wagner's attempt to replace religion with art failed in his lifetime. Yes, but he did inspire some very important fascists. You feel so simple right now. Should I shut up? I'm sorry. I think with big words. You're not the first to say that today. L. Ron didn't finish turning Scientology into the disgusting mass that is before he died. Takes a few hundred years at least to roll a religion into a large ball enough. Yes. Yeah. Like, individual people cannot start religions. They can start cults. And maybe if they're lucky, the cult will outlive them and turn into a movement. If they're lucky, if they're cursed, who knows? Anyway, pleroma. It's a good concept. Worth thinking about. Even though it's impossible to think about it accurately, because pleroma contains no thought. Well. Shall we say some other prayers? Rather than our big English words that don't make much sense? We can say some Sanskrit words that definitely don't make any sense, because none of you speak ancient Sanskrit. And yet we can still say the words. Unless I mean the veneration of anything, I mean the veneration of everything, right? Like, what are we here to do besides venerate? Right? Like, I don't know if there's some sort of fundamental meaning to it all, but I do find that prayer feels good. So I venerate, right? Like, I pray to all of you. Will confuses me too, but I like the things that you say, right? Like, you say challenging things. You say things that I, like, have to think and respond to, and I'm like, but wait. Ooh. You're good at derailing the conversation and making us talk about something else. Yes, I can't tell if you hate us in here or not. Yeah, like, I kind of thought you were a troll, but I thought the same thing about Sarah. Basically, I think any high level of engagement is a little bit trollish. Because you take my attention and you warp it into something else. But, like, I love it. I love it so much. And you're fascinating too, Baccio. Don't you forget it. Yeah. So, we're going to say Arati. You're an Orthodox Christian, so you take a strong view. When you say Orthodox Christian, do you mean Orthodox, like, very conservative? Or do you mean Orthodox, like, Eastern Orthodox, like, part of the Coptic Church? Russian Orthodox? Greek Orthodox? Syrian Orthodox? Ethiopian Orthodox? Probably Russian Orthodox. Small o. Okay. So, but wait, then what denomination? Catholic? What kind of Protestant? What kind of Christian? Do tell. Why do you pop in here with us heathens? Yeah. Presbyterian. Cool. I'm really happy you're here. I appreciate the challenging things that you say. Yes, it's not blasphemous if I was never a believer. I've never been Christian. With some Anglican sympathies. Yeah, you know your theology, clearly. And your partner is Episcopalian. So what church do you go to? Do you go to a Presbyterian church or an Episcopalian church? Or do you go to separate churches? That is not my vibe. Yeah, I very much like you here. I really appreciate the challenges you bring. So, let's say Arati. And attend either a UCC or a TEC. I do not know what either of those stand for. But you didn't answer my question. My question is, do you go to the same church as your partner? Do you pray together? I will await the answer as I pray. Arati means flame in Sanskrit. So here we have our flame. You live in different cities. Good luck on your long-distance relationship. That can be hard. I was in a long-distance relationship for 3 years with my current partner. It was challenging. We figured it out. Eventually we moved in together. Now we live in the middle of nowhere. Arati goes like this. That's so great. August. Good. And then you go to the same church. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venuola Papa Vidura Navanita Chora Jaya Jaya Arati Venkantaramana Venkantaramana Sankataharana Sitarama Radhe Shama Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara Gauri Manohara Bhavani Sankara Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari Raja Rajeshwari Tripura Sindari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimurti Avatara Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya Adityaya Bhaskareya Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya Sanistaraya Bhaskareya Jaya Jaya Arati Sankarachaya Sankarachaya Advaita Gravi Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata Sadgurunata Shivananda Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye Agastya Munaye Shriyama Priyaye Jaya Jaya Arati Ayapa Samine Ayapa Samine Dharma Shastave Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Grave Moses Grave Buddha Grave Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Grave Guru Nanak Grave Samastya Grubho Namaha Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala Natatra Suyobati Natandrakara Tamnima Vidyobati Kutoyamagni Twameva Bantamidwandi Sarvam Tasya Basya Sarmitam Vivanti Om Gange Kayamune Karva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhikaveri Yaha Namastitam Namo Namaha Twameva Mata Chapita Twameva Twameva Bandusha Saka Twameva Twameva Vidya Dravinam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kayena Vacha Manasandriyarva Budyat Manava Prakriti Sabhavad Karomi Adyad Sakalam Parasmahe Narayana Hiti Sarmar Payami Sarvadharmam Parichayam Mimikam Sarvadam Bhaja Aham Sva Sarva Papayo Mokshayami Masucha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, or my speech, or my mind, or senses, or intellect, my nature, or my emotions, all these I dedicate to you. To you. And because you asked so nicely, Batya, yeah, I will sing you that Edward Sharp prayer. What's going to be your tattoo? Your partner is a devotee of St. Charles, King and Martyr. Interesting. What does your church denomination think about non-binary people, right? Like, I assume you are not disclosing your partner's gender deliberately. Yeah. So, there's this American pop group. Pop, understood broadly. I don't mean like techno pop or teeny bopper pop or whatever. Your partner is envy and intends to become a priest one day. This? Great. They intended to work at the cathedral, actually. Cool. That's really cool. And does the cathedral that they aspire to allow non-binary priests? Maybe if they're tacitly non-binary? Envy people can be ordained. Your question about what, Buttflakes? Yeah, so anyway, there's this band called Edward Sharp. They're very American. And they have this unprayer that I just think is so great. Normally I don't like to pray in English, but this theology is worth repeating. It goes like this. I don't want to pray to my maker, no, no, I just want to be feeling free, Not like who I am, but the pink and golden land, and that wide, wild sky over me, Help me to the sun, hey, I'm looking everywhere, see, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer, and I don't want to pray, no, I don't want to pray, no, 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 I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, and it's not much good to talk, better to walk it, ooh, not much good to take, better to give, We are done, forgiven, and forgotten of our sins, and I promise you, my friends, all that dies will live again, so pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair, see, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer, and I don't want to pray, no, I don't want to pray, no, 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 I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray, I love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate, Asher, Asherah made good, and Anat made bad, Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate, I love Allah, God made, God made, God made, but I don't want to pray to my maker, no, I just want to be feeling free. Not like in a book, or the leaves of trees that shook from a word that means only not a thing. Hashem. Pardon, God and Mom, what I'm saying isn't fair. See, I'm looking to become not the prayer, but the prayer, and I don't want to pray, no. I don't want to pray, no, no, no. I don't want to pray, we don't want to pray. I love Allah, Allah made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate, Asher, Asherah made good, and Anat made bad, Eloheinu made love, and Yahweh, Yahweh made hate, I love Allah, God made, God made, God made me. Absolutely do not apologize, and Will. The way that you think is so interesting, right? Like, there are many similarities that I would draw to myself, right? Like, I wish very deeply that I could be a part of an Orthodox tradition, and I can't because I'm gay, right? Like, not that I can't, but there's a lot of challenges to rectify there, right? And like, I do think that a kind of inclusive orthodoxy is possible, but the way that I do it is by like going back to the really old shit, right? The old shit that is so old that people don't use it for prayer anymore, right? Stories about Era and Isham. No, don't apologize for your zealotry, right? Like, queer orthodoxy, awesome. I'm so into it. Yeah. I will make dumpster diving content eventually. Like, I went dumpstering with Astrid last week, but like very briefly, and I didn't film it. I don't know. I've gotten a lot of attention for dumpstering, and I don't necessarily want any more. I'd like attention for other things, but like, I do love it. And like, I guess the other thing is like, I've basically told all the dumpster stories that I have in my mind to tell, right? Like, now the dumpster stories that I want to tell are much more explicitly religious, like all that dies will live again, you know, like dumpster diving is an Ouroboros, quite literally. It is about death and rebirth. It is about recycling. It's about all these things. But I don't know if I can make those links to the dumpster any more explicit than I already have. So I've lost interest a little bit. But there will be more dumpster films, I promise. Are there any other comments that I missed? Thank you for all the gifts, Savannah. I really appreciate it. Yeah, there are diverse opinions about that. I don't like praying in vernacular language because I think it compresses meaning, right? Like, when you pray in a language that you know the syntax of, the number of interpretations that you have become more limited, right? Whereas if I pray in Hebrew, like, I can, like, we're going to say the Mourner's Kaddish next, right? And I read the translation of the Mourner's Kaddish yesterday. I don't know if you were here for that, but like, the Mourner's Kaddish translation the meaning of it, like the semantic meaning of it, has nothing to do with the meaning of it that I learned when I was in synagogue when I was little, right? Like, I learned that the mourner's Kaddish was about death, and it was about sadness, and you said the names of the people that you were grieving, right? But there's nothing about that in the context of the prayer. That's just the way it was culturally used. So I think we pray in holy languages in part because it frees the meaning of the syllables to be something more all-encompassing. And I think God is something similar. Like, we represent God using a particular kind of iconography, even as we know that God cannot be bound up in that iconography. And so praying in a language that I don't quite understand is part of that. Basically Puritanism in terms of theology, but not in terms of the sexual norms. Oh, it's complicated. Aside from Mary, your Marian views are very Catholic. So what do you do with this paradox that most Christian groups insist that 3 can be 1 and 1 can be 3? How do you deal with that? What do you think of the Arian heresy? Is it heretical, or is it just common sense? 3 is 3, duh. It's a mystery. Ah, very good answer. Anyhow, we're going to say Kaddish now. Kaddish is a prayer of grief that has nothing to do with grief. It's sacred, even though the words are everywhere, all the time, repeated hundreds of times every day. Because grief is a thing that we need to look at. And it expands, it crosses borders that we wish it wouldn't cross, and pervades our experience of being alive so intensely. We all suffer. So we say these words. For the last 2,500 years, give or take, my ancestors have said these words in response to death. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shema Rabbah, b'yalma divrach yotev yam nichmal chutei b'chayachon of yom echon of chay kol beit Yisrael, b'galav yizman kariv yimru, amin. Yehi Shema Rabbah mivarach li'alam, amei yalmaya. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shema d'Kudashah b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechimata di'amiran b'yalma v'imru, amin. Yehi Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim alinu v'chol Yisrael v'imru, amin. Oseh shalom b'mirmav huya aseh shalom alinu v'chol Yisrael v'imru, amin. Oseh shalom b'mirmav huya aseh shalom aleinu v'alechol Yisrael v'imru v'imru, amin. Thanks for joining me today. Today was really fun. Really good questions. Good morning, Jada. You caught us just at the end. I will be here on Monday. I'll say these words all over again. Exactly the same, and yet, very different. I'm glad you made it today, too, Kimmy. I've missed you. It's nice to see you again. Yeah, so I'm gonna go. But I'll be back next week. And, yay. So many friends. I say this all the time. I don't know how to express it other than just to repeat it. I feel so incredibly lucky and grateful and joyful that I get to spend this time with so many fantastic people. Yeah, y'all are amazing. Thank you so much. I'll see you again soon. Have a lovely weekend, okay?